From the hills of Tuscany to the banks of the River Rhine, welcome to round 5 of the Platinum eGP Pilot Series, and welcome to what is a very wet Hockenheimring. My name is Taylor Mills, and alongside me is Amity Pulsatrix, and we will be live from Lights to Flag here on ABN. Just 23 short kilometers outside Mannheim, Germany, lies a wonderful 4.5 kilometer stretch of tarmac known as the Hockenheimring. Previously played host to Formula One and now popularized as the final round of the DTM and ADAC GT Masters. 16 turns, 10 to the right and 6 to the left, provide a unique blend of high-speed straights and twisty infields, a compromising setup and plenty of overtaking. Main points to watch out for tonight: turn 5 at the hairpin can provide some drama and a lot of action, especially through traffic. LMP2s will have to show their patience through there and through the final sector as they weave their way through the long-standing arena. I expect a masterclass in traffic management to be the star of the show tonight. And Amity, we haven't seen wet weather since Mosport, and Hockenheim has been a staple of the motorsport calendar for years at this point. So as we are a few minutes into qualifying, how can our drivers maximize their races here tonight?
Consistency, consistency, consistency. That is the only way you're going to be able to make it through a wet race. We saw at Mosport the mixed conditions really caught a lot of people out, and they were making a lot of mistakes by pushing too hard while it was wet. And that is exactly what I hope that these drivers have learned from that particular scenario. Rain racing is very hard, I will admit that, and most sport in the rain is even harder than just the baseline level of hard with all the elevation changes and interesting corners. But here at Hockenheim, it's not going to be any different. It's still going to be difficult, and they're really going to have to focus. Also, for people who might not actually be aware, it is a special day today because it is actually Taylor Mills' birthday today. Co-commentator Taylor Mills is somebody who has won multiple EES championships, has a Petit Le Mans win, and now has 26 consecutive point finishes around the solar system. You can thank Olivia Hayward for that one.
Hang on, did she actually come up with that?
She DM'd me and said, you better give Taylor a very cringe and sappy happy birthday message on the broadcast during the intros, and gave me ideas. Revenge for sabotaging her with compliments during PEC intros. Believe it or not.
That's fair and valid. I'm going to give her the biggest hug tomorrow when I see her in Manchester. I'm looking forward to that one. Thank you, Olivia. You suck. Good luck in Formula 4. British F4 esports tonight. But no surprise. Well, I say no surprise to anyone. We do have a new entry from Project Belarus, as actually no surprise to anyone. Luke Smith jumps to the top of the timing screens, but he is joined by teammate Finn Anders, who makes their debut out here on track tonight, and normal service has resumed as well in the GT3 field, as it is Miguel Almeida in that gorgeous red and white McLaren that tops the GT3 field, with Alfonso Souto following very closely behind. And Jan Kurbs, the driver who hasn't had a brilliant season so far, I feel like we've been saying that quite a lot this season, up there in 3rd place, looking to try and make something of these wet conditions.
I apologize very quickly. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties with the liveries that should be resolved shortly. But yeah, we do have a new addition in Finn Anders, currently sitting only 0.35 behind the leader. So currently the best on track to challenge Luke Smith. We did see another driver earlier in Nürburgring at the eGP of Germany. We did see somebody actually giving Luke Smith a run for his money, so we might be able to see another one here with this yet another new addition to the field.
Yeah, I'd love to know why they chose Hockenheimring across 3 rounds until the end of the championship to make a debut, but there's an interesting little change. Jan Kurbs, who's been a mainstay in the Ford Mustang GT3, has switched over to the Audi R8 GT3 Evo, which is, I'd say, quite unexpected. Maybe the Ford not quite bringing in the look that he wanted. But I do believe, according to the series rules, that is a complete reset of points, but that won't matter too much to Jan Kurbs, who is now at the top of the timer sheets in GT3. as I don't think he's scored a single point so far. And he's going to be looking to turn that look around today as, yeah, he is well and above the rest of the GT3s right now.
Absolutely, because he's well and above Miguel Almeida, who's been on an absolute tear this season. Been winning practically, as far as I know, every race this, as far as I remember. Except Mugello, right. He did have a little bit of a struggle bus there. But Miguel Almeida is most definitely the championship points leader with as many wins as he's had. But that being said, Young Curbs did not have as much success in that Ford, was struggling throughout this season, so that switch might change things up, and that timing screen might be evidence of that. So Young Curbs giving Miguel a bit of a challenge, and Afonso Sudo, who I believe was a new entry last week, or 2 weeks ago at Mugello, is also hanging around and doing a good job here, also pipping Miguel Almeida.
Alfonso Suto, of course, we saw involved in that Turn 1 incident with his teammate, of course. That's, Sonic Racing Team hoping for far from a repeat of that tonight, as we have reached the end of qualifying, and it looks like the grid is going to be set. So let's have a peek at how everybody is going to line up here at the Hockenheimring, a very wet Hockenheimring tonight. So as the rain continues to hang around, we're going to have a peek at that GT3 field first off to have a look at how they're going to line up. Not the Grand Prix, the eGP of Italy, the eGP of the Rhineland. Writer Engineering's Jan Curbs does take that pole position in the Audi R8, lining up alongside Sonic Racing Team's Alfonso Suto, who once again has outqualified his championship-leading teammate of Miguel Almeida, who lines up next to Maxime Dumoulin, who we saw involved in a couple of fights out there at Mugello. Jeremy Debova and Dieda de Vlaming are going to line up on row 3, with Jan Curbs' Writer Engineering teammate Philip Spess lining up in P7. The other Vortex car of Navarro Debova is down there in P8, with Anthony Carranza, who really struggled to get on top of his Audi in qualifying, in P9. Replica Racing and Vortex Gold of Costa Rice and Franken are going to line up at the back of the GT3 field. As let's cycle up to the LMP2s and quickly have a gander at how they're going to start this race.
All right, gonna give me just a couple seconds here. Had a little bit of errors with the UI here. There we go. Now we see the LMP field.
So it's going to be service as usual at the front of the field for Luke Smith on pole position, but it is going to be a Project Valorous lockout as series debutant Finn Adders lines up in P2. Luke Tunerton follows up a fantastic qualifying from Mugello with another brilliant qualifying position on that second row in third place. Dimitri Dennis, who we saw involved in some fights last time out, is going to line up in fourth as the twin-turn sim racing Aurora car of Sebastian Isenberg will line up P5. Rubis Gas by NGC will have a car up there in P6 of Nelson Clemente, lining up alongside twin-turn sim racing X-Rays Dominic Isenberg. P8 on the grid will go to Eagle Speed Academy Esports Killian Clace alongside the Slippers Racing Team car of Alex Deiter. And finally, to round out the LMP2 field as they do get rolling towards the green flag, is going to be the ever-present Thomas Berlin. So, slippery conditions out here at the Hockenheimring Grand Prix circuit, a circuit that has been shortened in length since the early 2000s, but is still going to provide an interesting challenge out here tonight, as this is the first race we will have started in wet conditions. We'll have to wait and see how the weather conditions develop over the course of the next hour and a half, but Amity, we certainly love it when a little bit of a cat's thrown amongst the proverbial pigeons.
Cats thrown among the proverbial pigeons. That's an interesting phrase I've never quite heard before. But we are just about getting ready for race start here. And we do apologize for a bit of a late start to the live stream as well. We're running a little bit late on this, but we are here just in time for the race as the LMP2s round the final corner onto the start-finish straight. And it is right about now that the drivers are now flooring it through the start-finish straight and now heading into turn 1, a hard right-hander over that curb. as they come down the long straight between turn 2 and 3, and the GT's now coming through onto their start.
So Jan Curbs is going to lead everyone away. There is a bit of an early jumper behind to make it 3 wide down into turn 1 already, but a great start from Curbs, who is going to force the 2 Sonic Racing team cars side by side through turn 1. Fortunately, they get through that one without hitting each other, as that looks like Maxime Dumoulin looking to get involved with the fight for the final step of the podium as well. He's going to go right up the inside of Miguel Almeida, and there's big contact between those two as Dumoulin almost goes for a spin. Both cars managed to get out of it, but that's given Jan Curbs and Afonso Souto a heck of a lot of breathing room, as I think that's one of the LMP2s that's gone for a spin.
That was Dimitri Dennis going off track for a little bit of a spin. No other incidents that I can see through the LMP2 field, but this GT field seemingly getting things a little bit sorted out, as we see a little bit of chaos just behind the leaders here. Cars bumper to bumper, quite literally.
Yeah, Maxime Dumoulin looking to make up a position on Navarro de over there, almost running him over at the apex of turn 5, but has left him under a lot of pressure from De Vlaming, who has just about managed to pull alongside, coming down into the Mercedes-Benz arena. But Maxime Dumoulin on that, what should be a slightly grippier outside line, is going to hold on to that position for now, as he's looking for any way to make up these positions that he's lost, as Luke Smith crossed the line to take the fastest lap of the race on, well, the end of lap 1. But we haven't seen these wet conditions for a few rounds now, and of course it's a relatively new addition to iRacing. You do have to drive the track a little bit different than you have to in the dry, because of course that rubbered-in line is going to be very, very slippy with any amount of water on it, as the rubber on your tires is going to refuse to adhere with the rubber in the surface of the track. So you might find a lot of our drivers hunting for a grippier line somewhere just off the braking zone, as we're just having a look at Dimitri Dennis taking a very early pit stop and flicking back to Luke Smith of Project Valorous, who isn't running away at the front of the field, but has already pulled about a second from Finn Adders. And this is something interesting that came up in, well, my team's testing on Monday. We were doing some practice at a very, very wet Monza. It is so hard to follow the cars in front, because the second you get within, well, that 1 second window, you have this wall of spray that is just thrown up from the car in front. And even though these cars do have rain lights on the back of them, from about a second back, you can't see them, and it's so hard to pick out those braking points and turning points.
Still working on technical difficulties. I feel like the update might have screwed things. If there was one, I'm going to blame it on an update, whether it existed or not. Finally, I could hear again, just blasting my ears out. Anyways, we do have Luke Smith currently in front of the field, not dominating like he was the past few races this season with that challenger and Finn Adders, the unknown entity, the unknown... There's a turn of phrase that I'm forgetting. In P2, chasing him down. And another thing as well, Luke Tunison, we've seen he's had a bit of a rough stretch of races in the unlucky Luke machine, but he's currently in P3, and he's just behind, about the same distance behind Luke Smith to Finn Adders as Finn Adders is to Luke Tunison. So I'm wondering if Hockenheim might be a bit of a change of pace, as we see a little bit of an LMP2 spin out there just in the bottom right corner of the screen. That's Sebastian Eisenberg in the twin-turn sim racing aura going around.
Yeah, we talked about how tricky these conditions are. These cars, of course, have traction control. All of them have traction control, but sometimes that isn't going to save you in the wet. But at the front of the GT3 field, Jan Curbs not looking as comfortable. So we're just going to switch to a replay of Sebastian Eisenberg going for a little bit of a spin. I guarantee you he locks it up on turn, and here it comes. Yep, around goes the rear end. The LMP2 is a car that doesn't have the strongest rear end out of all the cars out there. The downforce, or the lack of downforce, really letting it down at the hairpin, as you've sped off so much speed the downforce is barely working. But a little bit of bumping and banging at the front of the GT3 field as Afonso Souto is trying to make that position up on Jan Curbs. Just a bit of nose to tail contact as Dominic Eisenberg has to avoid his relative, and Sebastian rejoins and does crack on. But fight's still going on up and down the field, and I want to get this one in early rain can be the great equalizer out there. So maybe expect a couple of people to be slightly out of position as Philip Spez has to make way for Dimitri Dennis into the Mercedes-Benz arena.
Yeah, Dimitri Dennis, early pit stop for a bit of an incident earlier in this race. And we saw the tail end of that being off track, going into the pit stop to try and fix things. And now Dimitri Dennis is dealing with some issues with the router or the ISP not quite having enough connection to the network to stay stable. Not enough connection to the server, rather, as he's now trying to work his way through the field. And that's got to make going through the field a lot more nerve-wracking, not only as an LMP2 driver, but also as the slower GT3 driver, seeing a car just disappear and then reappear. It's got to be a little bit nerve-wracking.
Well, it's not just that. It really messes with your flow as well, because the last thing you want to do is be, you know, inside another car. So obviously, if there's someone blinking, our driver's going to be doing their best to avoid that. We're just following Philip's best here, the number 777, starting to apply well, I say a little bit of pressure. That is a lot of pressure to Jada Van Vlaming just in front for Vortex Red. The Mustang is a car that we haven't seen be too quick on the straights here, as Spez seems to be making all of his time up.
Oh, whoa.
In the corners, as that is a McLaren that doesn't have a front end, although I think we've just seen a change of lead at the front of the GC3 field.
I'm not exactly sure if this might have been a spin out that Young Curbs was able to recover very quickly from, or if this was just a situation where he was very slow. But I do notice there's a crash notification for it, so I think we're going to take a look at this. If they get split apart just a little bit, Young Curbs, like, still applying that pressure. But to take a look back at what happened here, you see Young Curbs quite considerably out front. We see Dimitri Dennis trying to make headway through.
There it is. Yeah, that
going
is
off track.
Not a compliant car. Again, in these conditions, they can change on an absolute dime. I do think it's actually getting wetter out there on track. We've gone from slightly wet to lightly wet, which is more wet than slightly wet, just to try and keep a track of all those things. So track conditions are changing as these drivers are turning laps. Not enough cars out there in the field to clear any of that standing water, as it looks like it's just getting harder and harder for these guys to keep it on the road, as that looks like Thomas Berlin going for a little bit of a spin as he falls down the order to join, I think that's going to be Dimitri Dennis, in all of that clean air that those two have now found themselves in, thanks to getting in early race incidents.
And that is, I believe, Philip Spez looking for a pass on D. de Vlaminck. The Vortex Black McLaren, side by side still through these corners here. Onto the long straight now. The Ford Mustang, a big V8. The McLaren, also a big V8, both turbocharged as well.
Ooh, no, that's not true.
Is it?
The Ford fans are going to hate you for that one. That is a naturally aspirated.
If it's not turboed, it should be.
No, you're so wrong. Naturally aspirated is the way to go for these V8s. As Spez just looking for that move down the inside, is going to get that car stopped. And on that shorter line, will have the advantage on Jada de Vlaminck and will take that position, as Luke Smith squeezing through was very perfectly timed for him there.
Yeah, that was about as perfectly timed as you want. Regardless of my opinions about the Mustang and what it should be, we do see as well the Ferrari and the Audi R8 of Young Curbs, a new switchover from the Ford Mustang to the Audi R8, an upgrade, I would assume, as the Ferrari 296 trying to run away from the R8, the V10 versus the V8?
V6 turbocharged. It is an F1 based engine block.
V6.
Same one that's in the back of the 499P.
I swear I know things about cars. I just don't know about cars that I don't like.
Unfortunately, you are sat next to the girl who has made sports cars her special interest. You're in quite intimidating company on that one.
Seems like it. I mean, I love sports cars. It's just sports cars from the 80s.
I mean, fair. Those things were completely...
They were a totally different monster.
That I put in there. They were insane.
Yeah, the Audi 90 Quattro, the Oldsmobile Cutlass, even weirder ones like the Dodge Daytona from like the 80s and 90s, or like Yeah, there's another
Even
one.
Even the old Daytona prototypes had a charm.
I think it's an old... Oh, I can't remember. There's something Beretta. I don't know. There's really weird cars in the
steep.
80s IMSA.
Oh, that's Afonso Sousa going a little bit deep into the hairpin. It's the same way that Jan Kurbs lost the position, as these two are going to be side by side down through turn 7. Kurbs on that inside line. Afonso Sousa does give it up, but he's going to try and look for a way to fight back, as Ben Adders is going to send
really
a big one on both of them and force Kurbs right to the outside, giving Afonso Sousa the advantage mid-corner, as Kurbs is going to have to check up. But Luke Tunison going around the outside, who is still looking to hunt down that number 5 car, as just like that, Miguel Almeida, hello, he's re-entered the conversation for the lead of this race.
1, 2, 3, like pigs in a blanket, with Kurbs, Suto, and Almeida, all within about 2 seconds of each other, all within just a few car lengths. As this battle starts, it continues to heat up here in GT3, this 3-car battle. But in LMPs, there's really only one collection of cars that are close to each other, and that happens to be Nelson Clemente and Dominic Eisenberg. Dominic having to avoid his brother earlier in the race through wreck avoidance, doing so pretty cleanly, and now Nelson Clemente trying to run away from Dominic.
Yeah, interestingly, they are coming up on the back of that 3-way fight for the lead. But I've got to say, Nelson Clemente's little avatar always makes me giggle when it pops up on the broadcast. I love it so much. Like we use software that lets drivers sort of express their personality a little bit. They can choose to use a photo of themselves. They can choose to use a little avatar, team logo, whatever it might be. And I just love that Nelson Clemente's gone for this little almost Bitmoji character as he sends one up the inside of Jan Kurbs. It's going to leave the inside exposed, perhaps for someone else to squeeze through, but no one else is going to take that opportunity, as the top 3 is going to get separated by just a second or so, as Dominic Isenberg goes for a late move into 7 just to get clear of Jan Kurbs.
However, I think we might have had a bit of an incident with Miguel Almeida. We see him lagging quite far behind on that 3-car battle for the lead. It has now turned into a 2-car battle. We'll take a look at what actually happened here, see if this was a situation where just that one hairpin being very slow and kind of unintentionally characterizing a slow car as a, oh boy!
Avoidance. Goodness gracious.
Almost did the same thing he did 2 weeks ago, running into his teammate Afonso Sousa. He almost did that, he did that 2 weeks ago and almost did it again this week.
That was absolutely heart attack inducing, but there is actually a fight going on track right now. Sebastian Isenberg has managed to set up a run on Alex Deiter as they're going to be side by side on the run down to turn 1. It's the traffic that put this move in motion. Both cars are going to keep it on track, but Alex Deiter is going to have the better run out of turn 1 as they're going to continue side by side on the run down to that hairpin down at turn 2. Isenberg on the outside, Deiter on the inside. Isenberg on what should be the grippier section of the track, but Deiter on that shorter inside line manages to get in front as that's shuffled Thomas Berlin back into the conversation. But now we've got this big long stretch through the Parabolica at turn 5 on the run down to the hairpin at turn 6. Is Isenberg going to go for something down the inside? He thinks better of it. Deiter sends it down the inside of Jan Kurbs. There's almost contact at the apex as Deiter struggles to get that car through the corner without going wide into that Audi R8 that's in the lead of that class. And Deiter's going to hold on for now, but it doesn't look like Sebastian Isenberg is willing to give that one up.
You can really see how the visibility lowers so much. Even with all this fog, it just goes further down into almost blindness when you're following in the mist trail of the cars ahead of you. It makes those kinds of situations of trying to brake on time without losing time. As we take a look and see, I think that was Alex Deiter, going a little bit off track. One of those situations you really don't want to be in. You really don't want to make a mistake, especially with this much pressure from Dominic Eisenberg. Eisenberg looking on the inside, not going to be a move that's on quite yet. There's not enough braking zone in that particular corner to make the move stick, but is still going to hold on to this particular position, and now Thomas Berling might enter the mix.
Do you know something really interesting about that braking zone into turn 15?
What?
Well, back in the LMP1 days, you could get down the inside of GTs into there and beat them to the apex with absolutely zero issue. It was absolutely hilarious and became one of my favorite places to pass. It is now impossible to do it in an LMP2 on a GTE, but I'm thinking maybe with the pace difference between the GT3s and the LMP2s, I'm opening that up as maybe a spot where a move could happen as they come through traffic. I'm hoping it does happen, because it always creates pure chaos, and I love it. But of course, Sebastian Issenberg not able to get down the inside of another LMP2 through there because there just isn't the space to do that one. Philip Spez absolutely loving these conditions right now, as he's already on the back of Navarro de Bova, as we're just having a peek at his teammate at the front of the GT3 field, holding off Afonso Souto for now, doing a great job of holding on to that position that he retook after Souto went wide at the hairpin, where Jankos lost that position earlier on in the race. As that R8 just getting a little bit loose at the rear as they come out of the Mercedes-Benz arena and head down the drag strip into that final sector of this track.
Taking a look back behind from Jan Kurb's R8 towards Afonso Souto's Ferrari 296. A couple little spats of fire coming out of the exhaust port, I think. As wet as it is out there, those exhaust ports are still getting incredibly hot. As we take a look at the last corner, we can see Jan starting to make a little bit of distance on the 296. It seems as though Afonso
Sorry to interrupt there. We just had a Philip Spence who made up the position on Navarro de Bova, going very wide into turn 15 there, and loses the position to the McLaren once again, but has already got the momentum back, has a peak into turn 1, thinks better of going for it there. But this Mustang proving really strong in these conditions. Of course, the weight of that honking V8 on the front of it, able to just assist in just allowing that car to extract more braking power from those front tires, as Felix Best now on the back foot a little bit again, has to repass that number 12 car.
Ford Mustang versus McLaren 720. Whoa, look, almost a little
pushing each other down the straight.
Almost a little bit of a bump draft there. Now on the outside is Philip Spetz. Maxime Dumoulin on the inside, a blinking LMP2, causing a little bit of confusion maybe. Maxime Dumoulin on the inside, but they're still side by side.
Navarro de Bova.
Oh, is it?
That is Navarro de Bova, yeah.
Oh, okay. They're swapping position. Okay.
Dumoulins up the road.
My timing screen is a bit goofy.
It's all right. That's why we're here. Philip Spence down the inside then into the Mercedes-Benz arena. He's going to steal the apex away from de Bova and retake that position. And now, Philip, all you need to do is hold on to that place through the final sector again, and you should be able to go hunting down that P4 from Maxime Dumoulin. Just take your time, man. There's no rush. It's wet.
I think that particular move through the wet, sliding up through the track to get in front of Navarro de Bova, is what those in the dirt track scene would call a slide job.
Slide job.
Slide job.
Slide job. Ooh, big snap of oversteer from de Bova through the S's down towards turn 15. Just about manages to keep that one under control, but it's going to be his Vortex teammate of Dieda de Vlaming, who is right on his tail, coming out of the final corner across the start-finish line. De Vlaming is going to think better of going down the inside into 1, but he may set himself an opportunity into turns 2, or maybe even into turn 6, but that was a very scary moment for de Bova there.
Ooh.
And speaking of scary moments,
big damage on the rear end of Goose Franken. I believe no, I don't think he's a new entry. I'm not sure. Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, goodness me.
Almost spins in front of an LMP2. Almost takes him out as well. That is some massive toe in on that rear right. That has to be some heavy contact. We're going to take a look at the replay and see what happened.
Just coming through this final sector.
Oh, no.
We know how slippy those curbs can be, but it might just be under braking for 15. Yep, spins on the brakes, goes a little bit wide, and then just gets collected by Luke Tunison between the final two corners of the track. It's going to break. It is going to break the rear tail on that car, and it's going to take the rear end off it. As it does, I don't think that car is going to be able to continue. Here's the perspective of Luke Tunison, who had a big snap out of turn 12, where we infamously watched Sebastian Vettel go off in 2018. And ooh, wow. Okay, I think that was netcode damage. I don't think Luke Tunison picked anything up off that. That is very, very unfortunate for the Vortex Gold driver there.
It seems as though the unlucky Luke car of Luke Tunison actually getting away with it with that netcode situation. No damage seemingly on that vehicle, but Goose Franken jumping to the pits, probably a good idea. Unable to make it to the pits on that particular situation because the pit lane entrance was just beyond his reach. Had just gone past it, and you can't go backwards on the track to get back into the pit entrance, no matter how close you might be to it. As we take a look at Young Curves getting passed by, I believe that is Luke Smith.
I'm just noticing something about Jan's helmet. Oh, excuse me a second. No, I thought I was going to sneeze. No, we're fine. I just noticed something about Jan Curve's helmet. You can see it's got that Porsche logo on the front of it. I think that's going to be a little bit of a hangover from the LMP1 days, as he was a Porsche driver back then. It's just a little bit of something that I wanted to point out quickly. It's fun.
For some reason, I can't turn the camera right. I can only turn it left.
Oh, what's going on?
I'm having so many technical issues today. What in the world?
At least it's not like the cameras on top of the Indy cars, where the second they start turning, it sort of looks like someone's spinning out.
Yeah, very spooky. The Young Curves still leading the GT3s after a switch to the Audi R8. Obviously, the R8 seeming to be a little more biased towards Jan's driving style. Meanwhile, Luke Smith once again gathering a massive gap, 15.5 seconds. Luke has yet to really show much weakness throughout this whole season. Only having a challenge from a newcomer in the Nürburgring GP who only showed up for that one race, I believe. So has only really had pressure from one driver this whole season. And the car behind would be Finn Aders with Project Valorous, so a teammate behind him. So hardly any pressure to deal with once again. And we'll have to see throughout this hour-and-a-half race, now approaching just 1 hour left, if that consistency will continue to pay off for Luke.
Just keeping an eye on this fight for P6 in the GT3 field. It's going to be a fight of teammates, as Jeremy Debova apparently missing the front end of his car. I seriously don't think that's the case, otherwise he would have pitted by now. Just trying to get on the rear end of Navarro Debova, who's just slowly been falling down the order since the start of this race. Well, I was saying that.
Oh wait,
that might be a little bit of a lie. It's up too.
You see the front bumper missing too, right?
Yeah, I see it missing too.
That is so strange. I didn't get a crash notification or anything, so I'm not exactly sure why that bumper is missing. It doesn't seem like the car is slowing down all that much either. So I'm not sure what
it could have been. Could be netcode damage.
It could be, yeah. It might have been.
Black magic. Ooh,
black magic. Spooky. Ooh, we gotta.
Halloween's over. It's not going to be that. You'd think that at least.
I mean, Santa's magic. Maybe he's figured that Jeremy Debova has been naughty.
Excuse me. Let me have my birthday first, and then we can talk about Christmas. Them's the rules. I hate being at the end of November.
Chris Kringle being disrespected by Taylor Mills. Unbelievable.
Well, Chris Kringle can go eat a mince pie or something.
I have a feeling I know what you were going to say, but realized you couldn't.
You know what? I've been a good girl this year. I haven't sworn on any of the ABN broadcasts. It was actually Olivia who was the first one to do it, which is hilarious considering how much those sorts of words are part of my vocabulary.
I mean, you are an LMP2 driver. It's kind of in your nature to swear at GT drivers, right?
Excuse me.
Well, no, I'm just saying, as a GT driver, I know that LMP2s hate...
driver?
Oh, you don't drive LMP2s, right? You drive the top class.
Yeah, I like to control my engagements. Oh.
Well, I apologize. I've
never been so disrespected in my life.
On your birthday.
On my birthday of all times. Do you feel bad? You should feel bad.
I'm getting coal in my stockings this year.
Yes, you are. I'm going to make sure Santa Claus sends you coal this year.
I don't think you have to make sure. As we take a look at Young Curbs, still in control of the race, followed by Afonso Sudo in second. Mugello Circuit having a little bit of a contrasting race to the rest of the season today here in Hockenheim in third position, and you would think that's still pretty good, but Mugello Circuit has been dominating, winning pretty much every race this season, so a bit of uncharacteristic, series of unfortunate events in the sense that he's just not quite as quick as the other two ahead of him. Meanwhile, in fourth, Maxime Dumoulin, and in fifth, Philip Spess. Meanwhile, the LMP2 battle currently going on, which is to say there really are none. Luke Smith just running away with it. Finn Adders for both cars for Project Valorous, currently in a league of their own, although Luke Tunison trying to catch up desperately to try and make a challenge. And then in fourth place is Nelson Clemente with Dominic Eisenberg trying to follow in the tail. That's your top five per class.
Everyone just being really, really cautious in these admittedly very tricky conditions as the track does continue to get wetter. As I think Jan Curbs, it almost looked like he was letting Afonso Suto through there. So could be a little bit of fuel strategy gaming going on there. Could be the fact that he picked up a slowdown. I'm not quite sure. Just trying to see what I can see as there's almost contact down there at the hairpin. Curbs and Suto both having to avoid that one. But here's your stat of the race so far. With everyone being so cautious in these conditions, as you just watched a change of lead at the front of the GT3 field, no single driver has moved up more than 2 positions from their grid slot. We've got drivers that have moved down 6, we've got drivers that have moved down 4, but one of them has moved up more than 2. So Philip Spess, who else? Navarro de Bova and Guillaume Costa Reis are all up 2 places. Afonso Suto is up 1 place. The top 4 in LMP2 stays stable. But where is he? Nelson Clemente, Dominic Isenberg, and Killian Quaid, as well as Thomas Berlin, are all up 2, as Philip Adders is really having to defend from Luke Tunison, who was involved in that little bit of netcode contact in the final sector earlier on this race. Doesn't seem to have damaged his car at all, as he's just applying the pressure to Finn Adders on his debut for Project Valorous. And to be fair, doing a great job so far as that team's hunting for that 1-2 position, as after that little peak from Tunison, Adders seems to have really turned up the wick a little bit and is starting to just open that gap up a touch, perhaps finding a little bit more confidence in these conditions.
That is a pretty key factor when racing in the rain, is that confidence. You have to have the confidence that you know what you're doing and you're going to have the grip. Overconfidence is a pretty common problem in the rain, and that can cause, as we take a look at Luke Tunison actually going in for a pit stop as we hit the half-hour mark. And Adders now no longer under pressure. But as I was saying, overconfidence can be a significant issue in the rain, but also a lack of confidence can be similarly problematic. You basically don't want to be pushing your car, but you want to know that it has the grip to be able to go fast in these particular types of conditions, in this wet weather. Because being too overconfident means you think you have more grip than you do, and you go sliding around spinning. And not enough confidence can make you feel more scared of the car and the rain, and make you go slower, or also put additional pressure on yourself that really isn't necessary and then cause mistakes.
I think fortunately for the LMP2 field, these cars are relatively easy to drive. In the wet, the GTPs certainly struggle a lot more. So I think, I know for a fact that if you look at some of the results from the IMSA iRacing series on weeks where we've had rain, if a race has been wet for the majority, more often than not, an LMP2 has won that race overall, because they're just so much nicer in the wet weather conditions, is so much quicker, and you can actually extract some form of speed out of them. But in the GTPs, the car just gets to a corner that's wet and goes, water, gross, and then it's just gone. It's completely gone. There's nothing you can do about it. It's so difficult to drive those cars in the wet, as both the GT3s at the front of their class are going to move right out of the way of, I think that's going to be Thomas Berlin making his way through, just trying to quickly get confirmation. No, it's actually going to be Alex Dieter. There you are, who we saw involved in that little bit of a battle earlier on in this race. But I think almost an element of Jan Kurbs hunted for the slipstream there as he tries to get that place back. Gap currently around 0.7 of a second, thanks to, in part, due to that traffic. But Kurbs just started to struggle a little bit in this wet weather, which obviously I'm completely lying about because he's just closed 0.4 on the car in front of him.
Meanwhile, this battle for 5th place, Killian Claes, a name that we spoke about quite a bit 2 weeks ago at Mugello, having a few battles, very intense battles at Mugello. Now in a battle with Sebastian Eisenberg.
And just with some GT3s coming off pit exit as well. It's going to be Philip Spess, who's jumped down pit lane early. I'm just trying to see if I can see him on me timings. However, there he is. Yeah, joined by, I think that was Maxime Dumoulin. Oh, sorry, no, that's one of the Sonic Racing Team cars. Goodness gracious me, what's wrong with me? I'm trying to find him now. Amity, I feel like I'm going blind. Put me out of my misery. Who is that out there on track?
Where on track? What are you talking about?
The Mustang that was in that Mustang there. In the back
Would that not be?
Oh, it's the Replica Racing. Right.
Yeah, Guillermo Costa Race.
Yeah, I found him. There we are.
There he is.
See, we got there in the end.
New entry for this.
Who was
for
there
this
last
season,
week?
I believe. Was he there this
Definitely
week?
there last week. 100% like last time out. Yeah, it was the
I
Mustang.
know the
that was
Mustang in that particular livery was there, but I'm not
was
exactly
it not
sure.
Guillaume Costa Race? Well, it could not have been, you know.
I gotta double check here really quick. I've thrown myself for a loop, actually. I'm a little...
As so often is the case. Jan Kurbs, though, having a peek down the inside into turn 7 on Afonso Tuto. Isn't going to make that one work, because that is a very difficult corner to make an overtake on, no matter what class of car you're in. But Kurbs really starting to ramp that pressure back up on the Ferrari 296 GT3 at the front of this GT3 field. Gap stable, though, down at 0.3 of a second, and both of these cars looking for any time they can gain using the curbs on the exit of the Mercedes-Benz Arena. Not typically a smart idea as they lean on those white and reds coming into the final sector. Just switch over to Killian Claes coming out of pit lane exit. Very slippery, painted white line out there. You're going to want to avoid that. Thomas Berlin just in the back of shot, doing what he can to try and get past Killian Claes, who's going to hold him up just a little bit at the apex of turn 2 as we get going once again.
Don't think he was exiting pits. I think he made a mistake.
Oh.
Take a look at this in turn 1.
Oh,
yep, made a mistake.
Goodness me. Yeah,
Slipped.
that'll do it. I mean, fair play to him for making it look like he was coming out of pit lane. He committed to that inside line.
So now Killian Claes is going to have to make up some time while he's under attack from Thomas Berling just behind, now for 6th position. Meanwhile, just as we cut away from that crash, we also have another one, Navarro de Bover. Having a bit of an issue. Coming through the final section and just slips.
Yeah, touching the paint on the outside of the car. Oh, that was. I'm trying to. That wasn't Maxime Dumoulin, was it? Or was that Diego de Vlaming? I think that was Diego de Vlaming.
Yes, it was.
His teammate who followed him off the road there for a second.
Also, I think we've seen a crack in the armor of Luke Smith. Some Some of the drivers being caught off guard, it seems, in the after a half-hour stint. So that's Luke Smith, our leader overall, and in LMP2, having a bit of a moment there.
Oh yeah, these things happened. I feel like that was just absolutely nothing for him to just turn out the corner a little bit, avoid that one. Oh, big spin for Alex Dieter, touching the curb on the outside of one is going to let Dimitri Dennis right on through, and Dieter's car carrying a little bit of damage there as well. That was almost disastrous for the Slippers Racing Team driver. Goodness me, what a scary moment. We're going to get a replay of it here. Just turns in for one, goes wide through the middle of the corner, all over those blue and white curves, and there is zero grip out on that AstroTurf, that painted green surface, as Dieter just finds absolutely no purchase. Car goes for a spin, and it's a miracle that he kept it out of the wall there.
Yeah, very lucky there. Very scary moment, and it seems like there's two corners on this track that are really causing problems. That first corner, that first right-hander on the lap, and then this one right here that Killian Claes is now going through. We've seen quite a few incidents through those particular corners on the track, and they're very near each other too, those two corners. We take a look at Alex Dieter, I think being passed by Luke Tunison.
Yeah, Dieter just pulled over to one side, let Tunison through. I think we're going to see Alex Dieter come down pit lane this time by, take some repairs, take some fuel, maybe take some new tires. I probably wouldn't recommend it considering how long it takes to get those things up to temperature in these conditions. As I think that was Jeremy Debova either sliding wide or being assisted off the circuit by Luke Tunison. Wondering if we can get a cheeky replay of that. Yeah, here it comes. Here's the offboard as Debova just comfortably on that inside line and does get loose just before Tunison gets there. So not assisted by another one of the blue cars, but another car coming foul of turn 15.
Turn 15 nearly claims another victim, but manages to save it. So we take a look at this battle between Navarro de Bover and Diet de Vlaminck.
With the hows and whys of where people are spinning here, it's giving 2019 German Grand Prix vibes, because that race was pure chaos end to end. I don't know if you remember it. It was that race that I think
what series?
F1.
I wouldn't know.
German Grand Prix in 2019. 6 drivers retired from that race, and it was really the story of the likes of Charles Leclerc, Nico Hülkenberg, all going off at turn 15. Hülkenberg, who in fact infamously crashed out of 3rd place, a man who has never got a podium in his entire Formula 1 career, was in 3rd in a very good Renault at his home Grand Prix, and just off the road you go, into the wall, out the race, bye-bye, see you later. Fortunately, none of our drivers have ended up doing that today. Speed's a lot lower in these GT3 cars, so a lot less momentum to carry them into the tire walls, and as everyone's just managed to recover a little bit easier than perhaps you'd be able to in a Formula 1 cars. Everything just seems to have settled into a bit of a rhythm as it stands. Thomas Berlin half a second off the back of Killian Claes. Jan Kurbs half a second off the back of Afonso Souto. Navarro de Bover about a second off the back of Diet de Vlaminck, as just one of the LMP2s is trying to get by Afonso Souto. I think that's going to be your P3 man of Nelson Commentator. There's almost a little bit of contact on the exit of, there's a name for that corner, I just don't remember what it is, but it's going to allow Jan Kurbs to close right back up yet again and get under the rear wing of that Ferrari 296 GT3, as that R8 V10 is going to be screaming in the slipstream of that car.
Afonso Souto and Jan Kurbs have been pretty much locked in a heated battle for the first 40 minutes of this race. Jan Kurbs and new to him, Audi R8. Meanwhile, Afonso Souto showed promised 2 weeks ago at Mugello, got run into by his teammate Miguel Almeida. Showed a lot of pace 2 weeks ago, but unfortunately had that situation with his teammates. So now,
hang on, this could be an opportunity. Oh, it is going to be one. Jan Kurbs taking advantage of Dominic Isenberg, opening the door on the inside. Zafonso Suto tries to cut back. The rear end giving him absolutely nothing to get out of that corner. And straight away, Jan Kurbs taking the lead in GT3 yet again. Is going to have some breathing room to settle into.
Still very foggy, but you can see some of that darker tarmac versus some of the lighter colored stuff. That lighter colored stuff is much wetter. More wet? More wet. It's more moist than the rest of the track. That black, the darker areas of the track being the drier line. So Afonso Suto was trying to get some traction down, but just couldn't muster it. Too much water on that section of the track where the track was quite shiny. And the thing is, currently right now, it's the drier line, that darker line here. But as the race progresses, rubber is going to be laid down on that portion of the track. And when rubber is laid down, it smooths out that track and turns it into porcelain when it's wet. So to a certain extent, that drier line is going to be in high demand. But at a certain point during this race, it's going to be even slipperier than the wet lines, just by nature of the rubber just basically pooling water on top of itself.
Yeah, unfortunately for our drivers, there's typically only one way to get around the Hockenheimring, and that is on the racing line. It doesn't provide too many opportunities for you to waver off that one. I think the most we're going to see cars getting off the rubbered-in line is in the braking zones, but even then, everyone seems confident enough to stick to your typical dry racing line, even down into the hairpin, which is one of the wetter sections of the track, and is managing to keep the pace up for now. And to be honest, I'm not particularly worried about anyone on track wavering from that racing line to try and find more time, because I just don't think it's there.
That is a good point. Hockenheimring's incredibly unique layout of the track seems to be pretty frustrating to try and find new lines around on wet weather. There's not a whole lot of corners, as you mentioned, that really allow you to take advantage of that slightly extra grip on the wetter lines, on the off lines, versus just going on the slipperier line that is the racing line later on in the race. Just not a whole lot of opportunity for creativity, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but can certainly cause issues in these wet weathers.
Don't get me wrong, we're certainly seeing it down at turn 12. It is one of the only cambered corners on the track, and so there's a lot of water pooling up on the inside down by that curb, a curb that you can typically use in the dry. It might not necessarily be quicker or be a good idea, but it is definitely usable, as it does look like the LMP2 pit cycle is well and truly open. Sebastian Isenberg and Alex Deiter down pit lane. Deiter, of course, probably going to pick up some damage repairs on that one, but this should be a relatively sensible service for Sebastian Isenberg. He doesn't look like he's going to be changing tyres. It's not something I'd recommend in these conditions. You want some hot rubber underneath you, as it will be just just fuel, maybe a little bit of damage repair if you picked anything up, and then rolling back out there on track. So a two-stop for Sebastian Isenberg. He won't be able to go, well, he won't be able to go to the end of this one. It'll be quite some task to manage that. But there's still many LMP2s out there who are looking like they're going to be making that one-stop work. Namely, Luke Smith, Finn Adders, Nelson Clemente, Dominic Isenberg, Killian Claes, and I think Thomas Berlin all haven't stopped yet.
Our leader in LMP2 yet to make a stop. Looking at it as we see this massive gaggle of cars, just a mass, an amalgamation, a homunculus of vehicular manslaughter, as we see three wide, maybe, with young Kurbs. Luke Smith thinking a little bit better of it.
Sorry, can we just take a second to appreciate the quality of that move right around the outside of two cars, including a lap down LMP2 through turn 12. And after doing that, Luke Smith dives straight down the pit lane, 5 seconds short of the halfway point. He'll come out of pit lane way past the halfway point of this race as Jan Kurbs and Afonso Souto are going to cycle back through. So now let's just wait and see where all of the cars about 30 seconds back on track are going to pit, as Luke Smith is your first of the lead pack to come down the pit lane. Is he taking tyres, actually? Let's have a quick peek at that one.
Yeah, he is. He's up in the air.
It's an interesting choice. It's, of course, it's something I've tested in the last 8 months or so. But typically, taking tyres isn't a great idea when it's wet. But because, obviously, the track's wet, there's a lot less wear on the tyres because you're doing a lot slower speeds. And the tyre temperatures are kept really, really low. But that also means it takes an absolute age to get the tyres back up to temperature. And I mean, I don't think it's going to cost Luke Smith the race here, but he's going to struggle for a few laps whilst that rubber gets back up into its operating windows. Finn Adders is actually going to go for the same call, but he's under a lot more pressure from the cars behind as Nelson Commentator comes in and also changes tyres. I can't lie, I'm a little bit baffled by the choice from all of these LMP2s to change tyres. Tyre wear must be a lot higher than we were expecting here today.
It's also possible that they don't think the tires will last, because also Dominic Eisenberg choosing as well to change tires. I wonder if these tires are just not going to last the whole race, and maybe they've decided it's a better idea to just change them earlier and stay out on track for the last half of this race. Well, no, actually, it's just halfway through now, so not exactly sure. Maybe that is the case, that they just don't think those tires will last the whole entire race. Maybe they think the track will dry out too. Maybe it'll dry out more. I mean, but it is raining.
It's one of those things that we saw at Mosport. If everyone's doing the same thing, it doesn't really matter if you all keep doing the same things. We saw the GT3s cracking on around Mosport in the sodden, wet rain. All mostly still on dry tyres because none of the top 5 or so chose to blink, whereas everyone in LMP2 is blinking, which means no one's going to lose any time relative to each other, so I guess it doesn't matter that much.
Not exactly sure if anybody else is hearing those. Ooh, Finn Adder's getting a little bit slippery on the grass there. Not sure if anybody... Oh, and that's a car off track. I think that is... Oh, that's a green car for sure. Dimitri Dennis.
Driver who we saw well down the order after an incident on the first lap of this race. A lapper just getting a little bit in the way as he tries to make up time on Sebastian Isenberg, who's 25 seconds up the road. But Jeremy Debova looks like he's gone for maybe a little bit of a spin on the way into the arena. See if we can get a replay of that one for you to fully diagnose exactly what's happened. Here it comes. Through turn 11 he comes and whoop, rear end just gives up on him. We've seen so many incidents like that so far this race. Jeremy Debova being the victim of 2 of those sorts of spins. Fortunately keeps it out the wall, avoids damage and stays out of everyone's way, but Debova just really struggling in these wet weather conditions.
There we go. Audio issue is solved. Hopefully you don't hear them on the stream end of things, but Jan Kurbs and Afonso Souto still battling each other. 45 minutes, almost 50 minutes into this race, and they are still fairly close together. There's still a bit of a threat of a pass, not currently, but certainly start capitalizing on a mistake. Meanwhile, Luke Smith taking new tires and fuel, trying to get those tires up to temp, and currently 50 seconds ahead of second, as Jeremy Debova has another bit of an issue, this time at the hairpin.
Yeah, even in the wet, you can still flash heat the rear tires on these cars, which seems absolutely insane when you say it out loud. Let's just have a quick look at what happened here on the brakes into the hairpin. Debova turns in as the rear end just gives up on him once again. That is a car that is really struggling on its rear tires. Don't know whether that's setup or just lack of experience in the rain, but Jeremy Debova is really struggling as he started to come under pressure from one of his teammates as well behind.
And that's Luke Smith coming through.
Ahead, Miguel Almeida in third.
Luke Smith trying to make his way through, and I'm
almost contact.
going to make the argument that Jeremy Debova is currently having an issue with the setup. I feel like, and this is just my feeling, but he might have been practicing for the dry and did not expect the wet and used a dry setup, because that car, well, mind you, the car behind him is loose too. You saw him wiggling quite hard on the exit. And that was Miguel Almeida.
Ooh, another big wiggle for Debova on the exit of one, but you'd be surprised how well a dry setup works in the wet. There are a few changes that you can make to make it a little bit more comfortable. Raise the ride height a little bit, put some more downforce on it, just do what you can to give more softer rear end grip. But Debova going for another spin. Miguel Almeida glides on through completely unhindered, this time for Jeremy it may be Debova.
Yeah, a very frustrating race for Jeremy, having a lot of mistakes. Unfortunately, currently in 8th, and I don't believe anyone else behind him is currently on track. The number 11 of Guillermo Costa race. The numbers are so hard to read. 33 of Goose Franken and number 40 of Anthony Quaranta not able to finish this race, all retiring, with Jeremy Debova being the latest, unfortunately.
Conditions then proving very tricky for our drivers out there on track, with already 5 retirements and even more cars just on a little bit of a recovery drive at the moment. Look at the gaps in LMP2. These are not conditions that everyone is comfortable in. The wet is tricky. The lack of grip is horrible to try and deal with, as we've got 4 LMP2s a lap down on the leader. Killian Clays, Sebastian Isenberg, Dimitri Dennis, Thomas Berlin surviving so far in this race, but really struggling to keep it between the white lines. Dimitri Dennis and Finn Adler's almost having a little bit of a battle. It's not a battle that matters for anything, as the headlights flashing on the front of that Dallara P217 as Adders urges Dimitri Dennis to just jump out of the way and let him through. Dennis going very wide through the hairpin down at turn 12, and Adders just making no progress onto the rear end of him. Dimitri Dennis is still looking to make that gap up on Sebastian Isenberger. He's actually done quite well on that so far, having closed in 4 seconds, but a friend of ours, Olivia Hayward, always talks about the patience meter when you're racing in multi-class or racing in general, and Finn Adders is going to get very sick and tired of staring at that rear end of Dimitri Dennis at some point. And as much as he may be happy to sit behind for now, eventually it's not that he's going to be able to help it, but he's going to send a wild one. I can sense it.
Oh no. Spooky. A little off-track moment. A bit of lots of concentration from Finn Adders, or maybe even getting caught on that slippery curb there for a moment. Managing to save it.
But this is what I'm talking about. He's starting to get a little bit frustrated behind Dimitri Dennis. Of course, he's not chasing anyone down at the moment. It's 50 seconds behind his teammate of Luke Smith as he stays on that flash button all the way down towards turn 7. But he's thinking about the fact that he's got Luke Tunison 2.7 seconds behind, and he wants to maintain that 1-2 for Project Valorous, and he wants to do it in clean air. Like, there's nothing worse than driving in the wet, driving in dirty air, in the spray where you can't see, and also being stuck behind a lapped car. And that's exactly the situation Adders is facing right now. As just like that, Tunison has actually closed within 2 seconds as the gap has dropped to 1.6. And Adders, getting frustrated, is really starting to struggle.
But perhaps Finn Adders a little bit relieved that Luke Tennyson is not exactly unimpeded either, as he's also dealing with lap traffic right now with Thomas Burling in front of him. makes you wonder as well if both of them are maybe... I do wonder if they are actually frustrated or if we are imparting on that and maybe they're just tailing the lap traffic to save fuel.
Yeah, they've already made their stops past halfway. They don't need to save fuel.
A good point.
This is a scientifically backed theory signed off by Dr. Olivia Hayward. As it looks like the pit window is going to open up for the GT3s. This is about the time that we thought it would. And it looks like our first car down pit lane is going to be Dieta de Vlaming, because is that almost contact or actual contact down there at the hairpin?
That was very much almost contact with Philip Spess. It was a very, very close situation there. Just Philip Spess very slow through the hairpin. And I think Afonso Sudo might have had a bit of an issue, unfortunately.
It looks like it. Here we go. Here comes the replay of that one then. Suto dropping back from Jan Kurbs quite dramatically in the last 5 laps or so. Turns it into Mercedes-Benz Arena and gets back on throttle, and the car just has nothing to give him. As that 296 is going to go for a spin right in front of the Mercedes-Benz home crowd. No cars for them to root for out there on track, but certainly something that they may have enjoyed seeing there.
Meanwhile, Luke Tunison getting past traffic. Finn Atters dealing with traffic. So Finn is going to want to navigate Afonso Sudo fairly quickly. Now Luke Tunison also trying to navigate traffic, trying to make his way through it, but Afonso Sudo getting in the way, unfortunately. Going to have to take a bit of a wet line through there to try and make it past. And now Finn Atters has a bit of a grace period, a little bit of a gap, as Thomas Burling might be taking an attack.
Side by side then through turn 5 into turn 6. It's a place where we've seen so many overtakes so far this race. Tunison defending to the inside, Berlin attacking to the outside. I don't think he's going to be trying too hard, but Tunison is going to be all over the curbs on the outside of 6, and they're going to continue to be side by side, but Berlin is going to think better of it. Drops back into the slipstream behind Tunison, and even if the fight had gone another way, Tunison would have continued to hold on to P3, but he looks a little bit flustered at the moment, as I think that car's also carrying a bit of damage.
I wonder how Luke Tunison feels with Thomas Burling fighting this much. The lap traffic, this isn't to try and... There is really no possibility for Thomas Burling to get back on the lead lap. Luke Smith is too far.
For Dieta de Vlaming through turn 1. It's another spot where we've seen cars go for a spin so often. Another car that's touched the curb on the outside of the circuit, and the rear end has just completely given up. I think he just about managed to keep it out of the wall, but we'll see if that car's moving straight. I think that is no damage on the front of that British-born racing machine.
Seems to look fine to me. Kind of nursing it around just to make sure, but we'll take a look and see what happened here with De Vlaming.
Yeah, just as I said, it's that green painted surface that's so slippery. Another car just falling foul of it. And great job to keep that one out of the barriers. Good car control.
Was that Navarro de Bover? Just massive avoidance?
Yeah, well, not dying, realistically. It's very, very close there. Pit lane action then. Jan Kurbs exiting the pit lane. Miguel Almeida and Afonso Suto down pit lane. It's going to be Afonso Suto who's the first out back on track out of those two, as Jan Kurbs has extended that lead to 8.5 seconds almost. It's closing back down a little bit as both cars getting back up to speed, but great job from Jan to be holding on so far, as for the first time this season, Philip Spess is going to take the lead of a race. He, of course, is yet to pit, so owes us a trip down pit lane. But Philip Spess, congratulations. By the end of this one, you're going to have led a lap.
As of right now, the Philip Spess Ford Mustang, the only Mustang currently on track. Guillermo Costa Race, DNFing earlier, taking retirement. And Jan Kurbs, previously racing a Ford Mustang, switching this round to an Audi R8. leaving Philip and Guillermo the only ones here representing the Ford brand as it gets lapped by the number 55 of Luke Smith once again. And Maxime Dumoulin in the McLaren 720S, currently in second place, but yet to take a pit stop as well.
So I do have a quick theory on Jan Kurb's switch to the Audi as Maxime Dumoulin peels down pit lane to take what will be his first and only pit stop, with Philip Spez leading him in. I think Jan Kurb's accidentally selected the Audi R8. I think it was genuinely a complete accident. If he was switching to that car intentionally, that car would have a livery. And the fact that it's running around in base scheme iRacing colors, and I think he'll tell us that in the interview. And maybe I'll have a chat to Luke O'Sullivan, see what the crack is there. But I think Jan Kurbs was meant to be in a Mustang and accidentally chose the R8.
Well, if that is the case, you might be convinced to switch to it, given his incredibly poor luck in the Mustang so far and his luck changing in the Audi R8. I certainly would. He's currently once again in the lead with Philip Spess and Maxime Dumoulin taking a pit stop, but I think Philip Spess actually having a longer than normal pit stop because Maxime Dumoulin is out of the pits.
No, it definitely was. It's nearly 45 seconds longer than any of the other GT3s in the field. So maybe taking a little bit of damage repair, or I didn't see him changing the tires, which would have cost him a little bit of time. These tires on the GT3s can go a little bit longer than they can on the P2s and the prototypes full stop. So perhaps a little bit of damage repair. He was rear-ended, I think, a couple of times in that stint. So perhaps taking the opportunity to get some of those, get some of that damage sorted out and continue with this race, hopefully, at a bit of a higher pace.
Meanwhile, on the field, Finn Adders versus Luke Tunison. Finn in second place, Luke Tunison in third, as we see a bit of a car nursing itself. Dimitri Dennis in the Fuel Vine Racing 158. Now getting in the middle of things, having a bit of an issue, perhaps. Bit of a slide. Oop. Another moment. That car is just not staying on track in terms of, slipping around, and also in terms of just the netcode situation there. Luke Tunison is still looking to try and, was looking to take down Finn Adders, but is now heading into the pits. Again, for some reason.
It could be that damage repair. I think it's that damage. Oh, no, sorry. No, what am I talking about? This is the second stop of the race for the LMP2s. We were expecting this for some of these cars. Yeah, Luke Tunison going a good chunk of laps shorter than everyone else. 18 laps in the first stint, 19 laps in this second stint. So trying to do something a little bit different for Tunison, but just sort of working off the back foot here.
I do have to wonder if the two-stop is really the right choice to make here, because I don't know that the tire wear... I don't know that the tire wear is significant enough to make the advantage up, but maybe Luke has something under his sleeve. I'm not exactly sure what.
I mean, I never tout myself as a strategy expert. I leave that to one of my teammates week in, week out. He is brilliant at running those numbers. But with these sorts of hour 30-minute races, if you can't make it to 45 minutes at a decent pace, the strategy is two stop. If you can make it to 45 minutes without losing too much time on the fuel save, absolutely go for the one stop, unless you have like ridiculously high tire wear like we saw at Mugello. This is not the strategy to be on. I think Luke Tunison has just had a really bad time of it and had to come down pit lane because of damage.
Does seem to make a lot of sense, because he's dropped from third all the way down to fifth. Pretty significant drop in the points as we see Philip Spess.
Philip Spess, yeah. That's damage on the front end of that car as well. So a driver who we think took a little bit longer down pit lane to repair some damage, is going to have the unfortunate luck of having to maybe take another trip down. You could see he was using that curb on the outside of 7 to open up the corner a little bit, but with a lack of grip on that curb, the rear end just gives up on turning, and he ends up hard nosing into the concrete barrier on the inside of the circuit. You see a lot of protections for cars, like some Armco, some tire barriers, safer barrier, in positions where you'd expect a car to hit it. And turn 7 is one of those spots where you wouldn't really expect a car to spin to the outside. And we've seen what sort of damage that can do to a car, as Spez is going to continue with a front bumper that's hanging off, which is unusual for a Ford Mustang, because it's usually the rear end of the car that we see in some form of turmoil.
The front bumper hanging on by a thread, almost looking like it's being pushed around by the air around it, almost sinking into the hood. Significant damage on the front end. You gotta wonder if there's any radiator damage, because with the engine being in the front, it is highly vulnerable. Mind you, every car on the field has a radiator in the front of the car, but even so, you gotta wonder if the heat in that engine is starting to build and build and build, and how much this car is actually going to be able to limp around.
Related little fact, I work at a place in a town doing a job, and in that town place job work, there is currently a Ford Mustang Dark Horse sat in the showroom. I have seen a Mustang Dark Horse in person.
And? It's
like this nice gloss gray, bright blue brake calipers, full leather interior. It is one of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen in my entire life. I can't emphasize just how much I adore what they've done with this car in this new model year.
And it's especially gorgeous watching those Dark Horse Mustangs racing around, because there is a Mustang Challenge series with basically showroom spec Dark Horse Mustangs, but with roll bars put in them. H-pattern shifters, the classic.
Rightly so.
And they are really gorgeous. They're really pretty machines.
I mean, they're race cars. I just love race cars, and I don't know if I brought it up at all in these broadcasts at all, but being trackside at Le Mans this year, with the Cadillacs roaring by and shaking the ground, and the Mustangs roaring by and shaking the ground, it very much made up for the absolute lack of sound that the rest of the grid made. Because everything else, most of the GTP field, hypercar field, was turbocharged V6 hybrids and turbocharged V8 hybrids. And then the GT3 field was all, goodness, a muffled flat six, another V6, a couple of turbocharged V8s. And obviously that deadens the sound of an engine, but then you always knew when a Mustang or a Cadillac was coming by. And it's something that Cadillac guys actually spoke about. This new generation of car bump start, that is their primary way of getting the engine started. And they intentionally tuned it so that it would make one of the most amazing sounds on bump start. So if you can imagine sitting trackside between the pit lane and the grandstands at Le Mans, and you just hear the squeal of that Cadillac moving out of the pit lane on its electric motor, and then the absolute roar as that V8 fires into life. This is related to the Mustang because they make both of those cars just make an absolutely amazingly mind-blowing sound. I love race cars.
Race cars cool.
Race cars are the best. Nothing's better than race cars.
Well, I would say one thing is certainly better than race cars. Luke Smith, once again dominating, as he has done throughout this entire season. Project Valor is 55. Currently up on second place by 1 minute and 8 seconds. The likelihood of Luke Smith lapping the entire field is a possibility here. That is dominance. That is pure dominance.
At this rate, I think he's going to do it. Half an hour left, 20 minutes left in this race. about a second faster per lap. Seems, is it going to be 30 laps? Oh, excuse me. No, I'm going to say no. My money's on no.
It will be very close, though, and the fact that it is very close kind of shows just the kind of caliber that Luke Smith is. And if you need a little bit of extra help to visualize how skilled Luke Smith might be, I rating 6,259. I thought it was an achievement for me to break 3K, and he is double that.
That's minor. I could do that in a week.
Now, well, it's easy for you to say. You're actually good at racing.
I wouldn't go that far. Good isn't mediocre and not crashy. Like that. That's it. Yeah. Oh, excuse me again. Think about the hiccups. The way you get high I rating in iRacing is to just pick a series that you like, pick a car that you like, and just do that, master that, and crack on, and you're going to be good. That's it. That's all you need to do.
Taylor Mills, the most mediocre racer ever with EES championships, a Petit Le Mans win. Man, yeah, so mediocre to win races all the time.
Not all the time. I wouldn't say all the time. I haven't won any, and excuse me again.
More than enough times.
Twice. 2 years ago. It's been a while since I won a championship. I'll just get other people to do it in my name. Oh, excuse me. I'll just get other people to do it in my name now.
Do you need me to fill while you try and figure out a way to get rid of your hiccups?
Try and get rid of these hiccups a second.
Yeah, I'll let you do that. Meanwhile, so Luke Smith still quite significantly dominating this field with teammate Finn Atters behind in second position, a minute 7 behind. 30 seconds behind that is Nelson Clemente, currently in third in LMP2, and Dominic Eisenberg in fourth, with Luke Tunison trying to chase him down in fifth. Meanwhile, in the GT3 class, we have Young Curbs in the Audi R8, potentially a mistake pick. Didn't intend to pick it, but certainly not regretting that choice or that mistake or whatever it happened to be, because Young Curbs is currently leading and pretty much has been leading most of this race, or at least challenging for the lead against Afonso Sudo, who is currently second, about 20 seconds back. So the GT field now quite split apart. Maxime Dumoulin in third position in the 44 McLaren 720S. Miguel Almeida, another McLaren 720S. 2 weeks ago, crashed into Afonso Sudo and basically dashed Afonso's attempts for a race win. And this week almost did the same thing. And Navarro de Bover, currently in fifth position with a little bit of damage on the front left there, while teammate and brother Jeremy de Bover DNFing for this race. I do gotta hand it to Young Curbs, though. He's been doing a fantastic job in that Audi R8, driving the Ford Mustang for most of this season, not having the best of lucks, but certainly showing potential and pace. So the Audi R8 seeming to work in his favor in accordance with his driving style. Doing a good job in the wet to keep that car straight. Keep it well within levels of grip. And sometimes that's all it really takes, is just keeping the car straight and narrow, because we have seen Afonso Sudo make quite a few mistakes in that Ferrari, and that's really all it takes to build a gap as big as 30 seconds.
Hello, we're back.
You got it sorted?
I think I just needed to remind my body that it does actually have enough oxygen in it. So we're all right, we're good. It's Jeremy de Bover then we cut to, going for another spin, this time down at turn 10 on the exit of the Mercedes-Benz Arena. De Bover finding all of the tricky spots here on track. Again, it's another corner where we've seen so many slips and spins, and I think it's going to be on the painted white lines again. I think that Vortex team, yeah, almost getting caught up with his own teammate. But I think maybe the Vortex team need to go and just do a little bit more wet weather practice and really try and just work on staying away from those painted white lines because they are absolutely deadly. I remember week 1 of rain coming down the start-finish straight at Suzuka because it was Suzuka and it was absolutely chucking it down. And you know how there's all those different grid slots for all the different series that race there, Formula One. I think they do motorbikes over there as well, Super Formula, and all the GT stuff that pulls off from the pit wall. Every single time you go over one of those grid slots, well, the prototypes and the GT3s have these little lights on board that tell you when the traction control's cutting in. And every time you go over those grid slots, the traction control lights just light up straight away because the car is on the edge of spinning out of control because wet paint is not a grippy surface. Stay away from the wet paint.
Not exactly sure if those dash lights are going to come on any of these cars or if we're going to be able to see it. Kind of hope we do, but Philip Spess, the only Ford Mustang on the grid, is actually no longer appearing, so might have DNF'd. I'm not so sure. I don't know. He's kind of blipping in and out.
Retired, yeah.
Okay. Has retired.
That is a full-on multiple laps down in the pit lane. Retirement, I believe. I'm watching him. Yeah, he's in the pit lane. He's retired.
Certainly not going to see it on the Audi R8, and I don't know if the window net here, like the tunnel net. What would you call this?
It's just meshing. A net, isn't it?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Netting might be in the way or of showing us some of the traction lights. If they even show up in the cockpit view.
Yeah, I don't know if they show up in the cockpits because this is the Ferrari, right? So you see those 2 stacks of lights on the right and left hand side of the dashboard. Those are I call them traction control lights, but they're slip lights. So they will show you any time a rear tire's locking, a front tire's locking, or a rear tire is starting to lose traction. It'll be different colors in different cars depending on what's happening. But typically, it might be a blue for the traction control kicking in. It might be a purple for a rear end lockup. And of course, they'll light up on the side of the car where that lockup's happening as well. And then a front lockup, I think, usually pops up in an orange or a yellow. And again, is at the front of or at the top of the illuminations, just to properly indicate where it's coming from. I think that was Luke Smith. No, it wasn't actually. It was second place man Finn Adders squeezing through on Afonso Souto, who is still 19 seconds back on Jan Kurbs. It's closing down the gap a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough to take a late race victory in this one, as much as he's done his absolute best to keep that pressure on. But that brand new entry for Jan Kurbs in, I think it's the Brighter Engineering Esports blue car in that Audi R8, was intentional, is a new entry. All of Kurbs' points have been wiped from the championship to the end of this one, but maybe he was just looking for a little bit more success in a different car. I don't want to jinx it too soon, but it looks like that switch was the right call.
Seems like it might have been. As we take a look in cockpit with Luke Tunison, who is chasing down Dominic Eisenberg. The unlucky Luke numbers 396, I believe it is, going up against the number 23 in the Twin Turns Sim Racing Aurora, or X-Ray rather. A little bit of a give and take with this gap here that we've been seeing so far. As you can see just how much they have to work the wheel on exit just to keep the car pointed forward as they hit the throttle, trying to get as much rear traction as they possibly can, heading into the really tight hairpin here. Going to be getting around Navarro de Bover.
Yeah, I guess that one stopped nice and easily. The slightly alternate strategy for Luke Tunison, putting him just over a second off the rear end of Dominic Isenberg. Plenty of time to go in this one. 10 minutes for him to make something happen. It doesn't sound like a lot. It's still very few laps, but not if Dominic Isenberg is going to go that wide. Tunison is going to be right back on his tail as they come down into that final arena section and rejoin the loop of the old circuit. Not quite nose to tail yet, but Tunison applying the pressure, making Isenberg think about him. And if Isenberg starts mirror driving, I think this P4 is going to go to Luke Tunison.
Definitely a possibility, but it's up to Luke Tunison to keep that car pointed straight. There are situations where you might be pushing really hard to try and catch somebody, where you could be pushing a little bit, just a little bit too hard, and cause a bit of mistake as they go through turn 1. No harm, no foul, but it seems like Dominic Eisenberg getting a little bit of a gap formed here, but a very tight corner, very tight complex coming through here, late on the brakes as you dare. Getting as early on the throttle as you dare and closing that gap that had been made on turn 1, pretty much immediately negating it.
Oh, I'm actually seeing a little bit of a fight for position in P7. Dimitri Dennis just sliding around the outside of Thomas Berlin down into the hairpin. Both drivers giving each other just enough room, and it's going to be Berlin with the advantage on the exit. The 008 pulling back in front of Dennis. Dennis not happy with that one at all, as he had to go very wide into the hairpin. As just behind them is where this other fight, the P4 in class, is happening. Both cars wide and off the circuit, rain lights flashing, and there's almost contact again through turn 10 as they were about to continue going side by side into the final sector, but Berlin thinks better of it, slots in behind, and Dennis is going to take that position.
This position for 7th now. Dimitri Dennis in the green Fuel Vine Racing, number 158, I believe. 8s and 6s are hard. These fonts that I have on my... What?
You pay attention to numbers?
Maybe.
Fair enough.
I mean, it would help identify the different teams as well. You've got Project Valorous that have cars that look the same aside from their number plates, so might as well.
55 is pretty cool. I do like that. I'm a big fan of consecutive numbers, but I feel like I can make exceptions for doubling up on numbers. So like I like Toyota's 7.8, Ferrari's 50-51, Porsche's 9.6 or 6.7 or 5.6. I really don't like it when teams don't use consecutive numbers. I do not enjoy Jota's 38 and 12. I get why it's that. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but yeah, I'll let him have 5 and 55. I think that's allowed. Oh goodness, big check up down in the hairpin. The fight between Berlin and Dimitri Dennis clearly still going on there as those two get tangled up with each other once again. It's going to let Dominic Isenberg get right on the tail of Dennis. We're going to get a cheeky little replay of that one. Berlin, I think, with a run into the hairpin, has a look to the inside, tries to dive it on the brakes, and actually makes it down to the ground, just catches the rear end of Dennis's car on the exit of the corner, sending Dennis into a half spin, but Berlin has to come to a complete stop, and all that time that he's lost, he's now going to have to work to close in the next 7 minutes with what looks like quite a squared off front end there.
Meanwhile, Dimitri Dennis still having those netcode issues, still kind of blinking in and out. Could potentially cause a bit of an issue for this battle here between Luke Tunison and Dominic Eisenberg, the unlucky Luke and twin turn machines, going at it for 4th place. Now going side by side, the 23 and the 396. Luke Tunison getting the better of it and getting past the number 23. So now that's Luke Tunison up to 4th.
Wow. The alternate strategy seemingly working out for him there then. I mean, he's still got 22 seconds if he wants to close in on that final podium position, but to recover to P4, although Dominic Isenberg isn't going to let that go easy. The 23 going around the outside of 6. Tunison on that advantageous inside line will hold on to 4th for now. But Isenberg, as he drops back just a little bit, I don't think the twin-turn sim racing driver is going to let this one go so easy. There's still 6 minutes left on the clock as Tunison goes very wide and is going to allow Dominic Isenberg to slip right on back through as they're side by side through turn 10, almost making contact at the apex, and Tunison has to give that one up and slot back into position. Race cars.
4th position battle heating up now between Luke and Dominic. The 396 and the 23 taking shots at each other, exchanging positions as we see Alfonso Sudo now getting a little bit into the mix of things, but navigating, both cars navigating it quickly. A little bit of a late move from Luke Tunison, but thinks better of it, letting it back through. That could have been serious in the rain. That is a sketchy move in the wet.
A golden opportunity being presented to Tunison there into the final corner. It's not typically an overtaking spot, but Dominic Isenberg was very quick to take that opportunity away. Tunison checking up just at the apex to make sure they both don't make contacts there. And a very aggressive bit of driving from Isenberg and a good bit of heads-up driving from Tunison to keep his car in this race, as he's got less than 5 minutes on the clock to try and retake that 4th position. This is the closest fight on track at the moment, and it's certainly the most exciting one we've seen all race.
And don't mind those explosions that you saw on the bottom of your screen while they were heading towards the hairpin. That was Dimitri Dennis once again having a bit of a connection issue with the server. He's been blinking in and out all race. Thought there might have been a crash there that happened, but no, it's just Dimitri Dennis kind of blinking in and out of the 4th dimension. As a little bit of a slide from Dominic Isenberg, trying as hard as he can to build this gap to Luke Tunison. Try and put a little bit of a buffer. Meanwhile, Deed de Vlaminck and Navarro de Bover locked in battle. 2 Vortex machines, the Vortex Junior leading the Vortex car. The number 12 and 107. Finding themselves in a little bit of a battle as well.
Half a second then is going to separate the 2 Vortex cars, Navarro de Bover and Dieder de Vlaminck, as we come into the final 3 minutes of this race. Your current race leader, Luke Smith, looks just about set to take the inaugural Platinum eGP Pilot Series Championship with 2 rounds to go. So no pressure, Luke. If you crash now, it doesn't happen. If you bring it home to the end of the race, you are the champion, if you can hear me at least. To keep it on the road, keep it between those white lines, and you can put your feet up for the next 2 weeks, and you don't even have to try.
Absolute domination in the LMP2 field from Luke Smith. Project Valor is likely very satisfied with this driver pick here. Just absolutely flying through every single situation. Meanwhile, I think Jeremy de Bover had yet another incident. The number 14 McLaren stricken once again by terrible luck. Just stuck there waiting for traffic to clear, and now turns across and whoops. Likely a little bit of a frustration on the throttle response there. And it looks like it's not really happy. It's slipping around left and right. Maybe the toe on one of the wheels on that car. The suspension damaged just a smidge. We'll take a look and see what exactly happened.
Shouldn't have been contact with the wall down there, surely. Only Sergio Perez has the talent to go into the wall in that section of the track.
Well, there you go.
He did. Okay, never mind. Sergio Perez and Jeremy de Bover both have the talent necessary to hit that wall on the inside of the circuit. So another unfortunate incident for de Bover and the Vortex racing crew. But you really can't blame them, really. These conditions are so tricky. And you build up hours and hours and hours of muscle memory of getting a car around this circuit.
Now, wait a minute.
That line that you take is the dry line.
Wait a minute. There's been a bit of a battle we've been missing. What in the world? Luke Tunison is behind.
Made a mistake.
Might have been. There's a lot of incidences of passing here in my ticker. But we'll take a look and see what exactly was going on here. So, yep, a bit of a mistake from Dominic Isenberg. Luke Tunison gets by. And then heading through, still side by side. Oh, very close. And it looks like Luke Tunison makes an overtake there. So that's how that happened, and that's how we get into this situation now. So the battle for 4th, once again, heating up for LMP2.
So white flag is in the air for the Project Valorous driver of Luke Smith, a driver that has been absolutely dominant in every single race so far this season. Let's tick off the races that he's won and taken pole position in, just to remind ourselves as to how on top of this championship Luke Smith has been. Spa-Francorchamps, pole position, win. Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, pole position, win in the wets even. Nürburgring GP, pole position, win. Mugello, pole position, win. Hockenheimring in the wets, pole position, and he is now one sector away from going 5 for 5 in the inaugural eGP Pilot Series. Luke Smith and Project Valorous have put their stamp on this championship. They have been dominant from start to not even end, or in the middle of the season still. One more corner to go, slipping and sliding on that throttle. Luke Smith crosses the line to win in Hockenheim, and with that should take the eGP Pilot Series LMP2 Championship. Take a bow.
An absolutely terrifying performance throughout this entire season. Pure dominance. Nearly 6,300 I rating. Absolute god tier machine in this series. Meanwhile, Young Curve's going to be finishing out. First win in this series for Young Curves. The German from Ryder Engineering Esports Blue in the number 7. Driving an Audi R8 for the first time this season. Previously driving the Ford, ditching the V8, gathering 2 more cylinders, putting it in an Audi, and finding success finally here. All that was needed was just a car change, and luck has changed as well as Young Curves comes around the final couple corners of the Hockenheim ring. And now coming down the start-finish line as he too now seals a win for his corner and the Ryder Engineering team with the Audi R8. Potentially a mistaken choice, but we'll certainly learn in the driver interviews
whether it was officially confirmed. 100%. This is a completely legal car change. He's sacrificed all of his points that he's earned so far this championship and stepped across into the Audi R8.
Well, in that case, it is a fantastic decision to make. Gets a win out of it. The first win of the season. And so
just a little bit of confirmation from the series organizer as well. 2 rounds dropped. 2 rounds left to go, and he's won 5 straight. It is literally impossible for Luke Smith to now be caught. 2 rounds to spare. Like that is some absolute. I don't know. It's just pure domination. We've seen this before in other real life series, but never anything like this in sports cars. Anyway, let's quickly have a look down the field to see how everything ended up, and just have a quick recap of the final finishing positions. We're going to start out here with one of the classes. I will find out when it pops up on screen for me too. Drum roll, please.
Working on it. Here we go.
Starting then with the LMP2 field. Your inaugural champion, Luke Smith, brings it home in first place from pole position, 1 minute and 25 seconds clear of his Project Valorous teammate of Finn Adders, who finishes second to make it a Project Valorous 1-2 for the first time. A relatively anonymous race, bar a little bit of fighting at the start of it for Nelson Clemente, who brings it home on that 3rd spot on the podium. Right, the alternate strategy working itself out quite well on the recovery for Luke Tunison to finish in 4th. The twin turn sim racing cars finish nose to tail in 5th and 6th, with the Isenberg brothers taking up those positions. Dimitri Dennis, after very poor luck off the start, recovers really well to P7, with Thomas Berlin pushing through to finish in 8th. It is a debut win in this series for Jan Kurbs, who finally gets his car on the top step of the GT3 podium, with Afonso Souto putting up a great fight, but just falling off in that second half. Another anonymous race for the third spot on the podium is Maxime Dumoulin, who did everything he needed to bring that car home in third place. And another disappointing result for Miguel Almeida, who only managed P4. P5 goes to the Vortex Junior driver of Navarro de Bova. It's a brilliant finish for that team to bring that one home with, what's his face? Dieda de Vlaming bringing it home in P6 in class. Your retirements from this race, or at least your very many laps down, is going to be Kilian Claes, Jeremy de Bova, Philip Spess, Alex Deiter, Guillaume Costa-Rees, Gus Franken, and Anthony Caranta. The wet conditions out here at the Hockenheimring proving very, very tricky to deal with. However, first off, in the driver interviews, we're going to talk to an old friend and an old rival of mine who made the switch from the Mustang to the Audi R8 and in almost dominant fashion won in GT3. Jan Kurbs, congratulations, man.
Thanks a lot, yeah. It was really tense.
So yeah, tell us about that one, man. You and Afonso Souto were in quite the fight in that first part of the race, but then after the pit stops, he just seems to drop off a little bit and basically hand you the win.
Well, first part of the race first. I didn't do any laps in rain. I was just joining practice and saw, we are streaming, right? I was shocked to see rain, and I was trying to do my best, and yeah. I was just selecting Audi because I miss like the Audi LMP1, you know?
I knew it.
And yeah, luckily the Audi was really good in the rain as well, and yeah, seems like it balanced things a bit out, and I got good to grip really fast with it, and managed to even get pole. Like, I was watching my relative by Delta, and I was like, holy moly, this thing is fast. And yeah, I was on pole suddenly, and also the race was really, really tense. Like a really good fight. Really, really good racing with, I got it, Alfonso. I was having some issues on the brake at the start, making things a bit interesting, and yeah, also like the changing level of grip was really, really tough to drive. At some stage I thought like, okay, he's gone, he's much more confident, and then things came back to me again, and it was like a ping pong in the first half of the race, like switching places. And I think at one occasion I made a move on the inside behind the LMP2, and I think that one was like the last really good move, I think, and got to the pit stops, and yeah, I don't know if he took tires or not. I think he did, but I think it was like, yeah, done at this point, like minor mistakes. Like, it's a really long race. Doing this in those conditions, you have to be focused so much all the time. Every lap, you do one mistake and it's over. And yeah, it was really tense. Not only the fighting, but just keeping it on track. So yeah.
Certainly had entertainment value for us on our end as well. But let's touch on that car switch for a second, because it's not something we've seen at all from anyone in this championship so far. To be frank, it's not been a brilliant run in any platinum organized series for you guys at Reiter so far this season. I think you've been hit by disqualifications, retirements pretty consistently in every single platinum race that has been run, season 6 of the PEC and the eGP Pilot Series, where you were here in the Mustang at the start of the season. So was there anything besides missing the Audi R18, which of course most people that know you would probably second most associate you with brand-wise, but was there anything besides that brought about the change, or did you just feel like you had to do something to try and turn this look around?
Well, on paper, there were two opportunities. Either I cannot drive GT3, or I cannot handle the Mustang because of all the issues which occurred, like driver issues, collisions with others, or even hardware failure. And yeah, I had to do something. I don't know if I was dead last, but I was pretty bad in the championship, so I had nothing to lose anyways. And yeah, switching the car obviously costs you all championship points you achieved up to this point, which were like not so much. And I was like, okay, that's an invest I'm gonna try. And maybe it was the car, or maybe it's just my GT3 issue, but I think I found the answer to that now.
So we've got 2 more rounds left in this championship. Of course, we're going to see you in the Audi R18, I hope, for those last 2 rounds. But do you feel like you've reached a turning point now then, where you're out of the championship, but is this a point where you feel like you can really start fighting for wins?
Yeah, probably. I think Indy can be really good with the Audi as well. Sebring, I don't know. But always try to do the best with the car I'm in, either the Cadillac or the Audi or even the Mustang. So always looking forward to try something and always looking forward to win. So.
Well, we look forward to you putting on a show for us this time next week. Lovely to talk to you once again, Jan. It's been a while. Hopefully, we'll see you again here next week.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, trying my best. All right.
Congratulations once again, man. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too, guys. Thanks.
Sarah. So then, that was your GT3 class race winner of Jan Kurbs. A brilliant performance from him in the Audi R8 GT3. However, I think the one man that everyone has been waiting to speak to or hear from in the last 5 minutes is your Platinum eGP Pilot Series debut LMP2 champion with 2 rounds to go after another dominant performance at the Hockenheimring and bringing home Project Belarus's first 1-2 in eGP competition. Your newly crowned champion, it's Luke Smith.
Hello.
Well, welcome back to the broadcast booth.
Thank you.
It's the 5th time we've done this, and I said last week that I was running out of questions, but we rocked up here tonight to absolutely torrential rain. As Brits, I'm sure we're used to this at this point.
Yeah.
And of course, you did a bit of learning of it back at Mosport, but to have a full 90-minute race in pure rain, was there ever a concern that perhaps you wouldn't quite be there this week?
Well, actually, I usually prefer wet conditions, honestly. I usually find that, obviously, it does make it a lot more tricky, and it makes it a lot more kind of difficult to not only just kind of stay on track, but also be fast and stay on track. And I think most others definitely do like struggle with that a lot more. But I think, honestly, for me, I kind of revel in those conditions. Like, I always prefer tracks with a little bit less grip. I prefer kind of, I mean, to be honest, like my favorite track on the F1 game, for example, was Las Vegas for that exact reason. Like, I always love low grip conditions. And yeah, I mean, whenever it rains, I mean, that's exactly what you get. So yeah, I think experience is definitely what made that race so good today, to be honest. I mean, obviously having kind of quite a lot of IMSA races done in the wet as well certainly does help. And even if this track isn't one I've particularly done in this car before, I think the skills are kind of like very applicable in like from track to track, basically. You know that you've got to kind of break off the racing line, be a bit careful with curbs, and try and avoid kind of standing water, which there was one little moment that was a bit scary for, but yeah, I did kind of realise as soon as I knew that it was raining, I was thinking, oh yes, this is going to be a great race.
And it certainly was. There were awesome battles up and down the field that we got to witness. We barely got to see anything of you because you were just on your own out there at the front. But enough about this race. You are eGP's first LMP2 champion. You've been absolutely dominant in every single race up to now. We listed off all of your achievements as you came across the start-finish line. Spa, Mosport, Nürburgring, Mugello, and now the Hockenheimring, all won 5 on the bounce to take the first eGP Pilot Series championship. And it feels like a very open-ended question, but that's got to feel pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I've always had confidence in an LMP2, but I wasn't expecting this much at the start of the season, that's for sure. And I certainly wasn't expecting to win 5 out of 5, to be honest. Like, the pace I've kind of grown with this car as well has just been insane. I mean, at the start of the season I felt confident in an LMP2, but now I just feel kind of at one with it. And yeah, the fact that I was able to wrap it up with 2 rounds to go just means I can be even prouder of winning this championship. So yeah, it's awesome.
Well, with those 2 rounds to go, of course, we've got Indy Road coming up next and then Sebring to round out the season. But the rather unique thing we're going to see at some point between those 2 rounds is the fact that we've got a new tyre model coming to the LMP2s for next season. So how do you think that's going to affect your approach to the rest of the championship? Because you'll be able to tick Indy Road off relatively soon, depending on when they change that date to. But then everything surely is going to be completely different for the final round.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't know exactly how it's going to feel, and that's definitely just going to be something about kind of getting as many laps in as possible before the next race. But usually, I mean, I think when there have been kind of these little changes, I'm usually able to adapt quite quickly. But again, it will definitely be kind of a new learning process, obviously. But again, it is certainly a new challenge, but I'm all up for it, to be honest. And particularly now that the championship's wrapped off, the gloves are off, there's no pressure whatsoever. Just go out there and thrash it around the track as much as I want.
I'm hearing start from the back next week or next race.
I'll think about it.
So then, your inaugural eGP Pilot Series champion, Luke Smith, as always, we're going to give you a little bit of time, open up the floor for you to thank whoever you want, shout anyone out whoever you want, and we'll leave it to you.
Well, I've got a few. Thank you first of all to Valorous, and thank you to Finn, who was driving alongside me in the number 5 car today. I'd also like to thank Lucas Dirksen, who actually today gave me a setup because I didn't have a proper setup for this track because IMSA hasn't really been around here, so big thanks to him. And same for Luke Tunison, who is the driver of the 396. He has basically been we've been talking to each other a lot through the weeks. We've been kind of helping each other out a little bit with strategy, and big thank you to him. And yeah, that's about it. And thank you to you guys, of course, as always.
It's always a pleasure. Congratulations once again on the race win and the championship. We'll see you next time out in Indy.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Wow, what a race. The wet weather really throwing some spanners into the works on that one. We always say thrills, spills, and automobiles is always the name of the game here at the Hockenheimring, and it's certainly what we saw out there today as we get those beautiful shots of the final sector and the Porsche Experience Centre as well. Wet conditions though proving really, really tricky out there. I think at least half of the field getting involved in some sort of wet weather related incident, whether that's the rear end giving up on them on the exit of the corner, touching one of the painted lines and going for a bit of a spin, touching the curve on the outside of turn 1 as it transitions into that painted green surface and spinning to the inside. So, Amity, what's your takeaway from this race?
Absolutely, Hockenheim is probably one of those more technical circuits, but what we saw today, that the biggest challenge was the weather. The rain continues to be one of the greatest equalizers in motorsports racing. It doesn't really allow the fastest drivers to use the maximum grip allowed to them by their cars. They have to adjust to very different grip levels and very different expectations for the car and its behavior. And we really saw people championing those wet weather skills today in Jan Kurbs and Luke Smith. The great equalizer once again shows its ugly head here in Hockenheim, here in Germany. We saw it once before at Mosport, and it did the same thing here. We saw a lot of people being caught out by those lower grip conditions.
Well, fingers crossed it'll be a slightly drier affair when we get to Indy, because
and hopefully less foggy too.
Yeah, of course, but we definitely want to see more cars make it to the finish line this time. But what a race this was! Again, an absolute pleasure to bring you a broadcast from Germany. We've had 2 of those so far this season. It's one of my favourite countries for racetracks in the world, to be quite frank about it. But next time out, we go back across the pond and take on a very old racetrack. We head to the Indianapolis road course. Of course, that bit not as old as the rest of the circuit, but a racing facility that has been there for over 100 years or so, and always throws up some great racing. A twisty infield, a super long couple of straightaway stretches, produces plenty of opportunities for overtaking, and it's going to be all gloves are off. Maybe Luke Smith will surprise us, start from the back of the grid and work his way through. Maybe we'll see another different race winner in GT3, because that's 3 different winners in 3 races. Those are the questions all up in the air, and Indy Road is certainly one of those tracks that can give us an interesting race. I've been Taylor Mills. Alongside me has been Amity Pulsatrix in the ABN broadcast booth for the Platinum eGP Series, live from the virtual Hockenheim Ring. We will see you next time out. Well, we will see you on Saturday for the finale of the Platinum Endurance Series from Fuji, where I will be joined by Olivia Hayward to bring you folks that one. But for now, it's going to be farewell, and we will see you in America.